The focus on Christ is really here as a result, I think, of Awana.
It's been really the lifeblood of this church.
Awana saved this church. It turned it. We started growing, and it turned everything around.
My dad was the new part-time pastor for the church. It was in October of 1962. There were about 22 to 25 people sitting in this room that morning. I noticed there weren't too many kids. Jimmy Raymond was there.
It was a slowly contracting church. There were a lot of grandmothers and little kids like me, that came to church here. And there was talk at that time of this church combining with the Congregational Church in Edgerton into one church, just because the congregation was getting smaller. And they hired a young guy from Chicago by the name of Merlin Billhorn. And he came up here, brought his kids, and he brought the Awana program with him. And it was fun.
We got started in January of 1963, and it's been going strong ever since.
When we started Awana Club, when I was a kid, we started in the third grade through high school. Today we have Awana clubs for kindergarten, first and second graders. They're called Sparks. And we have the Cubbies, who are 3 and 4-year-olds. And this last year or two, we've even had a club called Puggles. And I don't know what age that is, but they're really small.
It's really adorable. So that's for 2 and 3-year-olds, and they sing and they play with Play-Doh and sometimes eat it.
We've got kids from age 3 all the way up through high school that are here doing all kinds of activities. There's adults that are here that want to be here and be with these kids and help them and hopefully be examples.
I was an Awana leader before I probably should have been. It was learning to be a leader that I became a Christian. I had no idea that my sins were already paid for until I took leadership training. It's a program that draws families in.
We've seen lives of families be impacted, starting with the kids in Awana.
My husband came to know Jesus Christ and was saved through doing verses with my now oldest son. There's just something about the tenderness of a child and being with them, and God used those words and those scriptures and those stories to draw him in.
My family came to know Jesus Christ because of Awana and because of Fulton Church.
Some of them came because grandkids are coming to Awana. Game time is the thing that draws the kids to Awana. But the thing that I'm most impressed with is the layout of the materials, where the kids memorize verses, and they don't just memorize verses, but they memorize them as answers to questions.
That translated into their academics. We could see that pretty quickly. When they had to memorize something in school or learn something or remember something, it came a lot easier because they had already, unbeknownst to them perhaps, they already learned how to focus and how to learn things.
I've been a leader in Awana most all the time that my children attend. I like to come when they come. Activities vary, but there's generally music and activities and Bible reading, and depending on your level, what there is, but songs and games and very fun things.
It recognizes that kids need an activity, that it needs to be fun, it needs to be social, it needs to be more than just sitting down and rote memorization. And while that's there and they make that piece fun and entertaining, there's a game period, there's things that attract kids and their friends to Awana.
And I noticed at Fulton Church they had families and children from all over in the community and even neighboring cities, so it wasn't even just exclusively Fulton Church members.
My wife Peggy always made a tour around the neighborhood picking up kids to go to Awana on Sunday nights, and she'd end up with 13 or 14 kids in a car, and that's back before the days of seat belts. So
Fulton Church isn't really on the way to a lot of places, so they specifically come for Awana and get involved in the programs and the various activities that we do here in all the age levels.
Awana has been a real draw for many families. As I've been an Awana leader for 35 years, I've seen families come first because their children come to Awana, and then you'll see the parents slowly drawn in, and they just become a part of the fellowship.
It also draws children, I think, into becoming more involved. It's not just another sports group or another youth group, but it's somewhere they can come where I think they feel truly heard and attended to and special, and can be sort of crazy and wild, but really serious sometimes too.
Well, when I think of the earliest memories of Awana here at Fulton, it cannot go without being said that I belong to the national championship team, and I have props just to show you. I have brought along the trophy that we won back in 1964, long ago. But that is when I try to think of memories of Awana, that's what I think of.
There was only one Olympics back then. Now there are hundreds of them across the country. I think you could have 16 boys on your team, and I think that was all of the boys that we had.
It came down to the last race with the best of our best against the best of another team, and the other team won the race. We came in second, but we won the war. We had the most points when it was all over, and we were the national champions. And that is, without a doubt, the earliest and best memory that I have of Awana.
And it was quite a surprise, and I'll tell you, it really did inspire moms and dads and clubbers and leaders to really get going in Awana clubs here.
I was the boys club leader for, I'm going to guess it was 6 or 7 years, and I just think of the fun times that you've had with that, because you're working with younger kids, and they're your kids, but they're kids that you've seen growing up in the church, and it was just fun working with them.
You know, when we were in boys club, that group of boys club leader was the best group of guys you could have as an example. Wes Millar and Mark Matthews, Bob Millar, Jim Raymond, regular guys, fun guys who wanted to be here. You could play football with them, you could throw dirty socks at each other and be nasty and gross, but you could also sit down and pray with them. And they were here because they wanted to share Christ with you. And even if it was on a day where you didn't sit down and do anything serious, you know, they were still setting an example. You know, that'd be the ideal, is that someone would think of me that way 20 years from now.
Our kids understand that their leaders care about them, and that we have great numbers as far as leaders to clubber ratio, and so that just makes our club, you know, that much more special, I think. And that would be my desire in the next 50 years, that we would be sitting here and we'd have a large group that we could say, look who's been impacted even more than what we've seen already and are pleased with. You know. And the strongest bonds I have really come through my relationships in Fulton, Awana. And so for me, it's just a natural part of my life. I hope I'm doing it as long as some of the leaders that I've seen.
I can think of numerous people who I had in Awana clubs as a friend. We grew up together. Jimmy Raymond, for instance, and I were in Awana clubs together. Bill Bertschy was in Awana clubs with Wes Millar, was in Awana clubs with me. These are men that are still in our church today, that have children and grandchildren that will be involved in Awana clubs today. So we have the very great fortune in this church of having what I'll call generational people.
Leaders like Roy Nelson and Dick Towns and Ruth Towns and Marion Luxinger, and people that dedicated their life at that moment to preserving this church, to making Awana fun and making it good for kids. And Awana saved this church. It turned it.
I think it's very important to keep the program going because we need things that have a positive influence on our kids.
The last 50 years, it's really grown and worldwide and even within the United States. I'd really love to see it stay connected and continue on for the growth of our children. I think it's, in my opinion, one of the only programs that really touches spiritually for children and brings them to the knowledge of Jesus Christ as their personal Savior in a safe and very fun environment.
Its heart's in the right place. Its core is there. It's this good Christian biblical teaching that's there. But beyond that, it recognizes that in order to attract kids into it, it needs to be fun.
And our kids would not be where they are today if it weren't for that influence.
I'm very appreciative for Fulton Awana and what it means to my family, what it means to my kids, and what I think it'll mean to their kids too.